Wakey, wakey, the Kellogg's football camps are here, all over the country. It's game on. Learn new skills, make new friends, and have loads of fun at your local clubs. Grab your boots for a summer of football at the Kellogg's football camps. Parents, buy a promotional pack of Cocoa Pops, Rice Krispies, and cornflakes before the end of June to claim a free day. Hello, this is Darren from the Football for Kids podcast. This is the live recording from the live stream which I did on Sunday the 4th of August for all of the Patreon supporters. Now, a pre-warning. About halfway through, the music for Football for Kids kicked in on the live stream, and little did I know when recording the live stream that the blooming thing started to drown out the sound of my microphone. Listening back, you can still hear what I'm talking about, but it can be a tad annoying at times, so apologies for the audio quality in the second half of the recording, but hopefully you can make it out and you can listen and enjoy to the majority of this episode. This was the first ever live stream that I've ever done on the podcast, and going forward, it's something I'd like to do lots more of. So if you haven't already, then please do ask an adult to click the support the show button in the description of this episode and all the other episodes. And just in case you can't hear when you get to the end, I've got to tell you that Football for Kids will be taking a month's break. I need a month to recharge the batteries and to write my book, Charlie and the Mystery of the Missing Cup, which chapter 1 is already on the podcast and I can't wait to finish it. However, if you are a supporter on Patreon, you will still get at least one episode every week whilst the podcast is away from the 12th of August. Hello and welcome to the Football for Kids podcast, live with me, Darren Rees. This is the first time I've ever done one of these, so I'm hoping that you can see me and hear me and see that fantastic football ground in the background. That is, of course, Fratton Park, and those of you who've had the luxury of being there or attending will know all about that place and how special it is, especially you Southampton fans. Now, I believe there is a place for you to write some comments or say hello. I think there's something here from Harris who says hi. Is there anyone else who can stick a comment into that box to make sure that it's working? Just to say hello and make sure it is working. I don't know where it is. It might be on the left-hand side. It might be on the right-hand side. But get your comments in and your shout-outs and your questions and all that stuff, and we'll get through those as we go along. So this is live for Patreons only. It will, at some point, be a recorded episode which will go on for the overall podcast on Football for Kids. And, of course, we're going to do a quiz, which you lot are going to test your football knowledge out against your adults, hopefully. And then we're going to do a question and answer session. I've got a load of questions here which have come in via direct message and comments on the Patreon page. And then I'm going to tell you about Kids versus Adults Series 2, which is all very exciting indeed. So, shall we get things kicking off with the Football for Kids quiz? So, get your pens and papers at the ready, and I just want to make sure that everyone can hear me. Bear with me. Yep. Okay. No, I'm all good. You can hear me. Right. Let's go with question number 1. Are you ready? Good. I could hear you loud and clear. I couldn't really. Don't get worried. Number 1. In Euro 2024, a team became the first team in history to miss all of their penalties in a Euros tournament. The keeper who saved them was Diogo Costa of Portugal. But which team was it that missed all 3 penalties against him? Was it A, Slovakia? Was it B, Slovenia? Or was it C, Serbia? I'm going to give you 10 seconds or so to write your answers down or to confirm the person you're playing with. And then I'm going to give you the answer. So make sure that you're keeping a tally of your correct answers and your wrong answers and all of that stuff. Your 10 seconds starts now. Okay. If you said A, Slovakia, you would have been incorrect. Because the answer was, of course, it was B, Slovenia. Portugal versus Slovenia. And Diogo Costa saved 3 penalties in a row. And it was absolutely incredible, wasn't it? Right, the next question, number 2. That was question number 1. Is in the Euro 2024 tournament, Lamine Yamal was the youngest player of the tournament and Pepe was the oldest. How many years difference are there between those 2 players, though? Is it A, 21 years? Is it B, 22 years? Or is it C, 23 years? You got 10 seconds. Okay, so the difference between Lamine Yamal and Pepe is quite incredible. And hopefully you've listened to the episodes which I've made on both of them. One of them is called, I think it was called the record-breaking 16-year-old. That was obviously the one on Lamine Yamal. I wasn't making the podcast of when Pepe was 16. Not that I know anyway. So the answer to that question is there are 23 years between the pair of them. How incredible is that? Wow. Lamine Yamal is going to have some career, isn't he? Oh, and by the way, while you're playing along here, if you think of a question, you want to stick it in the comments or the message box or whatever it is on YouTube or StreamYard or however you're watching this, then please stick a question in there. And as long as it's not the same question I've already got from other people, then we will go into those as well. Right then, the next question is, which of these players has 3 sons whose names are Matteo, Ciro, and Thiago? Is it A, Lionel Messi? Is it B, Bruno Fernandes? Or is it C, Cristiano Ronaldo? You got 10 seconds. Right, then a repeat of that question. Which of these players has 3 sons whose names are Matteo, Ciro, and Thiago? And the answer is Bruno. No, it's not. It's not. Don't get excited if that's what you put down. The answer is A, Lionel Messi. Well done to all of you who got that one correct. And the next question is, which of these players didn't spend their whole career with one club? Was it A, Paolo Maldini? Was it B, Ryan Giggs? Or was it C, Roy Keane? Well, 10 seconds starts now. Well, there goes your 10 seconds. And somebody's just sent me a message saying, you sound bunged up, Darryl. Thanks very much. That's very true. I think I've got COVID. I've had my face is all congested and I can't smell anything. and I feel rubbish, to be honest. But here we are. We are dedicated to football and the Football for Kids podcast. And the last question I asked you was, which of these players didn't spend their whole career with one club? Was it A, Paolo Maldini? Was it B, Ryan Giggs? Or was it C, Roy Keane? Well, A, Paolo Maldini, he certainly had one club for about 650 games. B, Ryan Giggs, a Manchester United legend, he played hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of games for United and was in the academy. So the answer was C, Roy Keane. He didn't spend his whole career with one club. He played for the likes of United, Celtic, and Nottingham Forest, to name a few. And I'm sure there was an Irish club, which I'm not going to try I'm not going to try and pronounce the name of it. My next question is, by the way, I didn't tell you at the start, we got 10 questions, okay? So it's going to be the best of 10. The next question is, which manager has won the FA Cup more times than any other manager? Is it A, Sir Alex Ferguson? Is it B, Arsene Wenger? Or is it C, Jose Mourinho? La, 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 la. All right, I'm shortening the amount of time you get to answer your questions now. And for the person who said I've got rubbish singing, you're right. I have got terrible singing. But the answer to that question is which manager has won the FA Cup more times than any other is, of course, Arsene Wenger. With Arsenal, the correct amount of times, if you wanted to get bonus points, was 7. Not if I told you could get bonus points, but here we are. The next question is, who were the last Italian team to win the Champions League? And the little tip, it was in 2010. Was it A, Juventus? Was it B, AC Milan? Or was it C, the other Milan, Inter Milan? You've got a few seconds. Right then, which one was it then? Was it Juventus? Was it AC Milan? Or was it Inter Milan? Well, the correct answer is... Oh, the music's just started. I like that. I set that up earlier. Inter Milan. That was the correct answer. They beat Bayern Munich in the final in 2010. And they were the last team from Italy to win the Champions League final, the whole Champions League tournament. How incredible is that? Right then, the next question is, who was the first nation to ever host the World Cup tournament all the way back in 1930? I guess if you've got somebody in your house who was around in 1930, that might be handy, but they might not be able to hear you. Was it A, Germany? Was it B, Brazil? Or was it C, Uruguay? You've got 5 seconds or so. Oh, it's getting harder, isn't it, now that you've got less time to answer it? So, just a quick repeat of that. Who was the first nation to host a World Cup tournament? Put the teeth back in 1930. Was it A, Germany, B, Brazil, or C, Uruguay? And the answer was C, Uruguay. Uruguay also won it that year. And if you've listened to the episode which I made on the FIFA World Cup, then you would have known that one straight away. Right then, the next question is, last season in the Premier League, Sheffield United, Burnley and Luton were all relegated. But only one of them lost all of their 5 remaining Premier League games. Which team was it? Was it A, Sheffield United? Was it B, Burnley? Or was it C, Luton? Oh, the time to answer is getting quicker, isn't it? It's getting quicker. And the answer to that question is it was A, Sheffield United. They lost all 5 of their remaining Premier League games, and what a terrible and hard season they had. Burnley, just if you're interested, got a win in their last game, and Luton got 1 draw but lost the rest. So then, the penultimate question is, last year, for the first time in 11 years, Bayern Munich didn't win the German Bundesliga. Leverkusen were crowned champions. But where did Bayern Munich come in the table at the end of the season? Was it A, 5th? Was it B, 3rd? Or was it C, 2nd? Right then, let's see how you got on with that one. Last year, for the first time in 11 years, Bayern Munich didn't win the German Bundesliga. Leverkusen was crowned the champions. But where did Bayern Munich come in the table at the end of the season? The correct answer is they came 3rd. That was a pretty poor season for Bayern Munich. And for one player in particular, can you shout out what his name is? If you said Harry Kane, well, you know your football. And the final question in the Football for Kids live stream quiz is this. Pep Guardiola is one of the most successful managers of all time. But how many Champions League trophies has he won with Manchester City? Is it A, none whatsoever? Is it B, 1? Or is it C, 2 of them? Okay, here we go. The answer to the final question in this first ever Football for Kids live stream quiz. I hope that you can see me and you can hear me and everything's going as I, hope it does. And the question was, Pep Guardiola is one of the most successful managers of all time. But how many Champions League trophies has he won with Manchester City only? And the answer was B, 1. He has won 1 Champions League trophy with Manchester City. Of course, it was in the same year that they won the treble. Right, I'm going to give you 30 seconds or so to speak to the people that you're playing along with, if you're playing along with anyone, or tally up your scores and work out between you who won in your little group or how many questions you got right. And if you want to stick your answers or how many you got right into the question box, then please do so over the next 30 seconds to a minute. After that, we'll get into the question and answer session, and then I've got a couple of updates for you, and then I will tell you about Kids versus Adults Series 2. So, here we go. Right then, hopefully you've had a chance to count up your scores and hopefully the kids all won. Sorry, adults, but I always want the kids to win in this kind of thing. And I hope that you all enjoyed playing along to the Football for Kids live stream quiz. And don't you worry, we're just testing this out the first time. There's about 35 of you by the looks of it watching on StreamYard and 15 of you watching on on YouTube via Patreon. So thanks to everybody who's tuned in. But like I said at the start, this will go onto the Patreon page first for everyone on the Patreon page to check out, and then we will stick it onto the overall podcast page at some point on Monday for everybody else to check out. Thank you so much once again to every single person who is supporting the podcast on Patreon. Without you, I wouldn't be able to keep it going because it takes ages to make the episodes and all of that other good stuff. Right then, questions and answers then. So quite a lot of them have come in, and we'll start with this one. Why did you start Football for Kids, Darren? Now, I did write loads of names next to these, but for some reason the names have all disappeared, and a couple of people have sent me this one. But if you sent me this question, thank you very much, and thank you for being a listener of the Football for Kids podcast. And the answer to that is this. So a couple of years ago, I took my son Charlie, who is football bonkers, football mad, football bananas, football everything, to go and watch the Finalissima at Wembley Stadium. And the match was Italy versus Argentina. Now, we were on the train and we were on the tube, and my son Charlie was asking me hundreds of questions about football like he does all the time, and I was listening to all the other kids speaking to all their other adults, asking them questions about, who was the person who scored this goal the quickest, and what happened in this, that and the other, and how big is a football, and how much does it weigh, and all these different questions. And I thought to myself, there must be thousands and thousands of kids, millions of kids out there who have got these types of questions about the sport which they love so much. And then when I got home, I started to write the first ever episode, which was called Messi and the Finalissima. And it was about my trip to Wembley Stadium with my son Charlie, the match and everything that we enjoyed and endured all along the way, from our journey from our house all the way to the stadium and back. And if you listen to that episode, or you've already listened to that episode, then you'll hear all about it. And that is why I started it. And now there's something like 250 episodes across Patreon and the normal podcast and all of the episodes on British Airways. And the podcast has been listened to about 2 million times, which is absolutely amazing. The next one is, how do you make the episodes? Now, that is a really good question. Now, normally, this is how it works. I look at my very, 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 very long list of episodes which I need to write, which you've heard me say on the podcast on many, many occasions. And I pick a player or a team or a subject or a competition or whatever it is, and then I research it. And I watch videos and documentaries, and I read articles and magazines and books, and I read websites, and I do all of that other good stuff. And I think to myself, what would you lot find interesting? And then I start collating all that facts, all those stats, all that information, all that data, and I put it all into one place, and then I start using that to make an episode. And it takes somewhere around 6 to 10 hours to research, write, record, edit, and then publish each and every episode. So that's what I do, and that's how long it takes to make them. The next question is, what was my favourite episode to make? Now, there's two answers to this. One was an episode I made ages ago, which was the one about the dog called Pickles. It was 1966, and a dog named Pickles. Now, if you've listened to it, it was a bit of a audiobook, because there is the story about a dog named Pickles who goes on to find the World Cup trophy, and there's some thieves involved and the police are involved, and there's all sorts of other cool things which are happening. So that was one of my favourites to ever make. The second favourite which I've made was actually quite a recent one, which is the one on the history of football. Now, that was only about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I really enjoyed that one as well. So they're two of my favourite episodes I've ever made, and I hope you've had a chance to check those out. Right then, what's the next question then? Will Football for Kids go on forever? Well, I'm not sure it will go on forever and ever and ever and ever. I'm not sure if I'll be doing this in 50 years, but there are plans to do at least 500 episodes, because there's already about 250 episodes, like I said earlier, and I'd hope to be able to make a good 500 episodes. But it's the sort of thing that could go on for a very, very long time. Now, this is a good one. Will Billions have as many episodes as Football for Kids one day? Right, here's the problem with Billions. The problem with Billions is I just haven't got the time to do Football for Kids and Billions, because, well, I've just told you how long it takes me to make an episode. It takes about 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours to make one episode. And recently, over the last 2 months, I've been doing 3 episodes every single week, because that's what I'm doing with Kellogg's. I'm doing 3 episodes a week with them so that you can hear about their football camps and to keep everybody entertained. So I hope that I can one day get Billions properly up and running. But at the moment, I just haven't got the time to do it like I would like to. I'd love to get one episode out every single week. But there are episodes on Billions you can listen to on Muhammad Ali and Michael Jordan. And I did start to write one on Michael Phelps, the swimmer, as well. So the next question is, what has disappeared? Where's it gone? Here it is. Right. When will your book be out? So I released on the podcast Charlie and the Mystery of the Missing Cup episode, or chapter 1. Now, Charlie and the Mystery Missing Cup is based on my son Charlie, like I said, who is football mad. And the story goes that one day he is dreaming about cheesecake, and then a crash of thunder and the rain smashes against his bedroom window and it wakes him up, and he doesn't get to eat this delicious cheesecake. So what happens? Well, he basically gets up, looks out the window, and he sees across the road in a very special building, which is holding a very special cup, that there's a door open, and he goes to investigate. So this is just in case you haven't listened to the first chapter, which is on the podcast. And then he discovers that Mrs. Amber comes flying out of the special building, and the special cup is gone. It's gone missing, completely missing. So then him and Mrs. Amber go on an adventure to find the missing special cup, and they meet some funny and special characters on the way. I've written 2 chapters of that, and I need to write the next 8, maybe 9, maybe 10. And I'll tell you a little bit about that at the end, because I've got a little bit of news on the podcast coming up. So the book news will be coming. Okay, I have got a few more questions. What do you do when you're not making Football for Kids? Now, that is another very good question. So I've got a family, I've got a wife, and I've got 2 children, Charlie and Ted. Another one of my books, which I've got a plan for, is a book called Ted and the Tales of the Football Time Machine, which will be an amazing story, let me tell you. But I've got to finish Charlie and the Mystery of the Missing Cup first. That's the first thing I've got to do. So I've got a family, that's the start of it. But also, my normal job is all to do with boxing, and I'm a boxing commentator. So I sit ringside when the boxing matches are happening, and I talk about all the things which are happening like a football commentator does. But I do that with boxing, and I make lots of boxing podcasts and all of those other cool things as well. So let me have a look at the questions before we move on to the kids versus adult series 2 stuff. Okay, so that was the last question which I had on that. Now I know that Duncan sent me a couple of last minute questions in. So this was from Duncan on Patreon, and Duncan said, this is from Toby AJ. He would like to know who you think the GOAT is. Oliver AJ would like to know, did anyone inspire you to make the podcast? Let's start with Toby's one, and thanks Duncan for sending these in. So who do I think the GOAT is? I think that can only really go to one person, and that is Lionel Messi, because of his story is completely incredible. His following, everything he's done, he's broken every episode we talk about on the Football for Kids podcast. Lionel Messi has broken some sort of record, so he has got to be the GOAT, very, 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 very closely followed by Cristiano Ronaldo. And Oliver, aged 8, who inspired me to make the podcast, and I guess it was just lots and lots of kids who were really passionate and loved their football on the train that day, who were just inspired by footballing stories and stats and facts and all those types of people. And then Duncan, who I'm guessing you are the dad, Duncan, who is age 49. Have you heard the story about Gary, who drives a van, by the way? When I very first started the podcast about 2 years ago, I got an email from a man called Gary. He said, "Hi Darren, absolutely love the podcast. I can't get enough of it. Thank you so much. My favourite episode was this, that and the other." He said, "The only problem is my name's Gary, I'm 40 and I drive a van." Anyway, Duncan, you reminded me of that one. So Duncan, 49, would like to know if I've listened to the Eric Cantona's music or his music debut, and am I a fan? Well, Duncan, I actually watched him on, what was he on? He was on like a Jonathan Ross or one of those kind of programs, wasn't he? And it was, you need to have a particular type of taste, don't you? But yeah, good old Eric Cantona. He's always been a showman, hasn't he? Whether he's been on the football pitch or if he's been on the football pitch. Can't remember which one I said first. Right then, they are all of your questions and answers for everything you have asked me on Patreon and the last few which have come in and all that other good stuff. And I'm just checking there's no others in the messages. No others in the messages. That's cool. So the last thing for me to tell you, as you've been watching for the last half an hour, and thank you very much for watching and playing along and listening and all that other good stuff, is Football for Kids, Kids versus Adults, Series 2. Well, there's something else I need to tell you before that. Football for Kids is going to be taking a month's break. There will be 1 month of no Football for Kids on the normal podcast. But don't you worry, because there will be a episode each week on Patreon as a massive thank you for continuing to support the podcast and all of that other good stuff. So no episodes on the normal podcast for about a month from the 12th of August. That is when the Kellogg stuff is due to end this time round. And once again, please do check out their football camps. So in the meantime, for Patreon people only to start off with, for the first week, and that is from today, what date is it today? The 4th of August. From the 4th of August for a whole week. This is what you want to do if you need to get involved in Kids versus Adults. You need to send me a direct message on the Patreon page to say, please can I be involved in Kids versus Adults Series 2. There are 10 spaces in total where, like in the last series, kids will get to play their adults and there will be a series of questions like there was last time, and there will be a winner and there will be a loser. We will start the recording for those in September, and then they will be released in probably the end of September, going into October, and possibly even the first weekend going into November. I can't believe how many people really enjoyed those. So thank you so much to every single person who got involved in those last time, because without you lot, those episodes, those Kids versus Adults, wouldn't be anywhere near as good as they could be. In fact, they wouldn't be able to be made, would they? If no one got involved, that would be it. But if we can't fill the 10 spaces on Patreon, and I'm sure we can, then we will put it out to the rest of the podcast and the thousands of people who listen all around the world on Spotify and Apple and Amazon Music and all that other stuff. So if you want to get involved in Kids versus Adults Series 2, then literally from right now, you can send a message into the Patreon page on the direct message and say, please can I be involved in Kids versus Adults? And I will choose 10 people at random, if there are 10 people or more, who put their message in to say they want to be involved. Well, I think that is absolutely everything for this time round. This was a bit of a tester. And thank you once again to everybody who's been listening on StreamYard and everybody who's been listening and watching on YouTube Live and on Patreon and all that other good stuff. I hope that you've enjoyed playing along to the Football for Kids live quiz. I hope you like the question and answer session, and I hope lots of you get involved in the Kids versus Adults Series 2. For now, remember, if you know somebody who loves football just as much as you do, then please tell them about Football for Kids. And whether you're playing football soon, watching it on the telly, or pitch side, I hope that you enjoy the game. See you next time. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. And remember that Kellogg's have amazing football camps taking place throughout the school summer holidays all across the country. In fact, they're in 73 different locations across the UK. The camps are for 5 to 15-year-olds and are in partnership with the EFL, Manchester City, Celtic and Rangers with FA approved coaches. To sign up today, grab a promotional pack of Kellogg's cereal, find the camp code and redeem a free place at www.kellogsfc.com. Terms and conditions apply.